So thank you so much for for choosing knowledge this evening, this Monday. Today we're really lucky to have Dr. April Atwood with us, and April Atwood is a full-time lecturer at Seattle University, where she teaches courses in consumer behavior, marketing principles, marketing and social issues, and sustainability. Thank you so much, April. I'm giving you the word. Take it away.
Thanks, Ania. This is, I'm happy to be here. Again, I did this a couple of years ago with Zero Waste Washington as well. It was a hackathon, but similar kind of innovative ideas being shared. So that's awesome. Let's see, what I would like to do first is actually, I would like to hear about what kinds of projects you're working on. So some of you introduced yourself already and told where you're calling in from, but we learned very little about what your interests are, what your focus is during this work. So if we could, so you could be thinking about, like how to describe in like 1 minute. This is a good elevator speech practice, right? How to describe what it is you've got in mind. What's your focus of thinking here? And then it'll help me to know what you're interested in as we go through the session tonight. We're going to talk about telling your story is the topic for tonight. But in discussing this with Xenia ahead of time, we kind of talked our way through my perspective, which is before you know what story you should be telling, you need to know who you're telling it to. And so that's going to be the focus of much of what we talk about during the session tonight. Okay, so give me a little bit of context or info about what you're doing. Alec, thanks.
Yeah, hi. So I'm with the Cup Project, and I see Natalie's on here too. She's on our team, and the Cup Project is a reusable cup catering service for small to medium / semi-large events. And the idea is we bring stainless steel cups to your event, and they in place of single-use disposable plastic cups, helping events save money and reduce their waste. And yeah, that's kind of the overview.
That's very cool. I'm actually part of a group at Seattle University that's working on zero waste. So we're talking about so you said single-use plastic cups, but also single-use, even compostable cups, right? This would be better.
Yes, compostable plastics, yes.
Right, yeah. Okay, good, thank you. Let's see, so Natalie, do you want to add anything to what Alex said about the project?
Yeah, just a little bit of background. Me and Alec both work for a nonprofit called the Downtown Bellingham Partnership that put on a lot of signature events in our downtown area.
Wow.
So we have a lot of experience with that and are really excited to get plugged in. And it's definitely a need for our community. So it'll be great.
That's great. I was curious about what sorts of events you had in mind. So that gives me a little more insight. Good, thanks. Mark, how about you?
Well, thank you for letting me share, and everybody. So out here at Grand Farms in Bond, Washington, we are an equine facility. We have an ongoing pile of manure. It just keeps growing and growing. And we're not the only facility that has this ongoing plague. And so 2 years ago, I decided to go ahead and design a homemade gasification plant. And I realized really soon that I was not quite ready to take on the full challenges of that yet. And so I had a prototype, I built it. I realized that I needed more money, more involvement. And so here we are several years later, developing that process even further and involving yourselves and this ongoing need for managing our waste. And so the agricultural side of it is been going on for a long time. We have a power need. We also have environmental needs. And inside that, those two come together. And the problem has been is these plants are really, really expensive, and the amount of money you get for the power produced on them doesn't pencil out. So you got a lot of money going into them with very little money being generated out of them. So now with the involvement of the new Web3 development platforms, we're able to combine the new with the old and produce power with profitability and environmental concerns being dealt with.
Good, thank you. Are you doing this on your own?
No, there's a group of us, and I have the property to start with for our prototype facility, but I'm also wanting this to expand into the state and federal and world, because it's not just for our agricultural needs, it's also any waste. You know, we have municipal MSW as well that needs to be dealt with as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good, thank you. Have you connected with other ag power groups, companies?
I'm not connected personally, no, but a lot of research over the last 5 years, and so they've already do it in many other parts of the world anyway. It's just the United States is lagging in this technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I teach right now at Seattle University. I've been teaching sustainable business for a long time at different organizations, including like, now I was thinking it's almost been 20 years ago with Bainbridge Graduate Institute. And one of my first student cohorts there had students who were the founders of Farm Power in Skagit Valley. So that would be a great one to connect to.
Well, thank you.
And tell them that I mentioned it. They'll remember me from long, long ago now. Yeah, great.
Nice.
Yeah, so Hans, you're talking about Spokane and waste to energy plant. That's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but you know, ultimately, it's a similar concept where you take something that's going to be waste and essentially burn it so that you can develop energy, you know, from it and make it a make it a value stream instead of a waste stream in another way. So,
right.
With his project, it seemed specifically related to, you know, horse manure, but with, I guess, the only place I can think of that sort of ethos has really caught on in the US is within waste to energy, which is more popular in some states than others. But I looked into it at one point in Washington, and Spokane was the only place that I found out that has it here.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Greg, you're next on my screen. You want to talk about your project?
Sure. So we make shampoo and conditioner concentrates. Your typical shampoo is about 80 to even 90% water. And so this is one of our C bars. One of these is going to last as long as 2 to 3 bottles of the liquid stuff. And then refills come in these cardboard tubes, so you're not doing the plastic thing and pretending those bottles get recycled. And then for every one we sell, we pick up a pound of ocean trash. But we did a bunch of research with people and asked them why they hadn't switched to solid shampoo yet, because there's a lot of them out there. And the biggest reason was people didn't like how it gets gross in the shower. And so we just put it in these reusable twist up tubes, basically a deodorant container. And it keeps it from getting gross in the shower, makes the bar last longer, and gives us a lot of ingredient freedom because we're not having to battle the melting shower stuff.
Awesome. And I hear evidence of research with target customers so that you could get insights into what would better serve their needs, right? Awesome.
Yeah,
great. Thank you. Gemma, you're next. You've got beautiful blue sky behind you. Okay, you're on mute. There we go. Still muted, Gemma.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm with Maria and Gavi in our startup. It's called WA Dept. And this is going to be a service that intends to educate people to eat more nutritious food to gain health and educate people to buy grocery using that uses the list packaging so that we reduce waste.
Okay.
So it's going to be basically an education platform.
Okay.
And the way we want to do it, we know that we have competitors online, but the difference with these competitors is that we want to offer a more personal one-on-one service.
Mhm.
And we want to start with a underserved group of people, which is the Hispanic population, as that's what our background. Because we think this group of people is being absorbed into the SAD diet, the standard American diet of buying all processed, all packaged, all ready to eat. And our culture acknowledges more the cooking and eating with family, and yeah, but it will be open to any other groups of the population.
Mhm.
And maybe Maria has something else to add there.
Maria, you want to jump on in? Unmute.
Sorry. Yeah, so we want to go to the roots of the problem, which is the knowledge that each individual and each family has to have in order to change our behaviors towards our health and the health of the earth. So we think that if we provide a service that educates each family, changes will come in terms of eating habits, and as a byproduct, reducing a lot of waste.
Interesting to think about the kinds of changes that can happen at the family level, right?
Yeah, a lot. It happened in my house. So we used to have breakfast, have cereals, and I used to buy like 6 packets of cereals, which each of them have a bag. So imagine right now we are eating whatever we have in our fridge. It could be a veggie burger made by ourselves. It could be a soup, vegetable soup. So there is no association between breakfast and cereals and dairy. So it is, what is nutrition in my fridge that I could use to sit down and have a breakfast.
Cutting down food waste too. I like it. Multiple benefits. That's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, we want to focus on reducing, because we've tried recycling and we think it's just not enough to talk about recycling. We have to reduce the amount of packaged food that we consume. Stop producing things that have to be recycled. We really need to reduce all that load.
Avoid it, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next on my screen is Tunis. Did I say that right?
Hello. Yeah, you can call me Tone. That's easier.
Okay.
I have a small farm, and I also work at the Tenasket School District. And the Tenasket School District generates lots of food waste, and it all goes to the landfill. Nothing gets separated. And so at some point, it was like, okay, now something needs to be done. And I noticed the school wasn't going to do anything, so I tried to kind of create a public-private partnership with the school district. And hopefully in the near future, I will start to separate the food waste, or have the students already at lunchtime in the cafeterias and the kitchen staff separated, and I'll then pick it up on a daily basis and take it home to my farm, where it will be pre-composted and mixed in with other ingredients, with manure, to kind of keep a balance of the nitrogen and the carbon. And take it through a heat cycle, and so that the pathogens and the weed seeds, if there are any in there, are killed. And then once it's cooled off, the goal is to then feed it to worms in continuous flow through worm bins and harvest the worm castings and sell that to farmers and gardeners in the area.
That's a big project. You've got lots of moving parts.
Yes, it's a big puzzle. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Next up is Hans.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, so I guess a quick little bit of background. I'm a mechanical engineer. I've always been interested in clean energy in particular, and that's kind of a space that I've followed. And last year, I was dismayed but not surprised to learn that in the US, 9 out of every 10 solar panels that reaches end of life is just thrown out. And the reason for that is because even though recycling exists, it's a lot more expensive to recycle it than it is to throw it out. And it's like $30 to recycle a panel or $1 to throw one out. So it's the same problem we have with plastic. And with plastic, you know, we're a couple decades accelerated, so everyone knows how that went. It's already floating in the Pacific Ocean. Well, solar panels, you know, we don't really have the option to reduce producing them because the whole point is that we want to make our energy grid more clean by creating green energy with solar panels. So basically, I wanted to research if there were alternatives to recycling for solar panels, since it's becoming kind of clear that that's not really going to become, you know, the only solution for this growing waste problem. So I started a company called Revolve Solar for basically upcycling solar panels that are otherwise going into landfills into other products. And the primary product that I have prototyped and kind of marketing right now is what I'm calling a modular green roof planter. So basically you can use those for new buildings or old buildings that you retrofit and outfit those buildings with a green roof. And those have a lot of environmental benefits.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yes, there will be increasing need, as you know. And we can only hope, right? Yeah, more solar panels. Great. Okay, let's see. Natalie already talked about your project, right? And Maria talked about hers. Andrew, you're next on my screen.
Hello.
Hey.
Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, my name is Andrew Powers here in Des Moines, Washington. And the project I'm working on, I've been going around with the name, but it's turning plastic bottles, single-use plastic bottles, into 3D printing filament, and then processing it a little bit more to turning into planters. So something that holds a plant so it can grow, meaning the soil, the water, and another smaller component called a Raspberry Pi, which is an education device that can then monitor the soil and water to tell you where the plant is and even send that to your phone. So all of this to take plastic bottles, turn it into planters, to then turn it into a STEM kit that then can teach young kids and almost anybody about the cross-sectionality between recycling, 3D printing, agriculture, and computer science. So that's the gist, or we'll get better at that.
Well, no, you did it in like less than a minute. That's good. It sounds like smart planters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, good. Interesting idea. Thank you. Maria, we heard from Linda. There you are.
Hi. Yes. So I'm with a group Tiffany is part of, and Layla and Senna as well. We all work at a clothing bank in Forks. It's a nonprofit used clothing that provides the community with used clothing, but it's also for people who don't have the money. They can get vouchers and get clothing they need. But we always end up with a whole lot of unusable clothing. that hundreds of pounds of it, and on a regular basis, that would either go into the landfill or get put in containers and shipped off to other countries. Neither of those solutions are what we feel good about. So what we want to do is repurpose the unsellable fabrics into crafted items that we can sell to help support the program that we're working in. And I think that Tiffany could give a whole lot more information.
Nice handoff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think Linda did do a nice job, but hi, everybody. My name's Tiffany. Emerson and Layla, who you'll see on the screen here, are also part of our team. So think about your closet. We know that 9 out of every 10 garments end up in the landfill. Only 1 out of every 10 garments is recycled. So we're already trying to address that problem through normalizing secondhand shopping. And again, like Linda said, providing these low cost and a more sustainable alternative to people for their wardrobes. But we do have that huge problem of textile waste. We're out here in a rural area in Forks, Washington. And so even for us to take something to the Goodwill textile recycling stream, which is again where it either gets baled and sold to other countries, which is contributes to waste colonialism, or it would be sent to downcycling installation. But even that is a minimum of an hour's drive for us to get to the drop-off, and then it's going to be transported even further before it gets to downcycling. So what we would like to do is reclaim those textiles and reclaim them locally. And while we're doing that, let's hire people who are already marginalized in the workforce, to hire makers from our community, so that not only the textiles stay here, but the jobs stay here and the money stays here as well. Maybe Emerson and Layla would like to add anything to that, but that's us. Thanks.
Thank you. Nice handoff, Emerson and Layla.
We believe that they both did wonderful jobs explaining it. There's not much more that we could probably add.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, next on my list, on my screen, Natalie, not Natalie W, but the other Natalie.
So I'm a Natalie W as well. I am in East Wenatchee, and my idea is to, if I won this grant, I would use it to start up a glass recycling effort. We have all the volunteers to staff a major glass recycling effort, but the nearest glass crusher is an hour away, and it's not good for the planet to burn gasoline to haul glass to that crusher. That crusher is in Chelan, Washington, and they process nearly 8,000 pounds per month. And we in the Wenatchee Valley do not, maybe twosies and threesies haul their glass up there. But for the most part, we have thousands and thousands of pounds of glass here in cider, beer, and wine that are not being recycled. They are going into the landfill. So our idea was, and I'm in the Wenatchee Rotary, and there's just huge support for this through the Wenatchee Valley, Sustainable North Central Washington, Team Naturaleza, just tons of volunteers want to do this. We would like BNSF to loan us a boxcar once a month. And we'd like to have a Saturday glass drive. All the wineries, the cideries, the pubs bring their glass in the crates and just load the boxcar and let the train folks haul it down to the glass recycling plant at Kalama. And it's o-i.com. I'm sorry, I don't know what their real name is, but there is a glass, yeah, there's a bottle factory there. And we would love to supply them with tons of glass, but and keep it out of our landfill and presumably save them some raw material procurement. Mm-hmm. And we're just having trouble getting folks to return our calls. The train folks don't want to talk to us. And the landfill folks here get paid by the pound. So they're really not incentivized. But we have thousands of enthusiastic young people who really want to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm retired, so I said, okay, I'll see what I can do.
I'll help. That sounds, yeah, what a great, again, system level problem, right? And challenge. Yeah. The whole system different. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overlook you. We have 2 Natalie W's. I didn't realize until.
Yeah, that's
okay. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm the older, less French Natalie.
Okay. Okay. And then we also have Natalie, who's not a Natalie W. Now you're.
Oh, okay. I should go now.
Now you can go. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And hello to all of my other Natalies and the rest of the teams. So I'm so new to all of this, but what I'm trying to do is use, reuse, refillable, refill, recycle popcorn packaging, but the packaging itself would be considered like a popcorn concierge. And so it would be metal tins or sterile glass. And these packaging can be returned because I create vegan popcorn. And the reason for the vegan popcorn is trying to provide a healthier snack option to vegans, plant-based foodies, and other folks who just love the taste of popcorn because it tastes good and it's fun. And so we want to do this where folks can bring the package back and they can either refill with more vegan popcorn, or they can bring the packaging back with the uncooked kernels. And those kernels can be remade into a new product like bean bags, but it would be popcorn kernels. And then those bean bags can be donated, or they can be sold into neighborhoods or communities that can be taught how to make these bean bags and also be used for fun play. So it's healthier snack options and fun exercise, with products that you can make from home. Mm-hmm. So I would say, again, I'm trying to target folks that are already kind of conscious about, food waste, and they can help bring this, help me, really get this out into the community again. So vegans, plant-based foodies, domestic engineers, so moms who are home with children and they are already, focused on food waste or doing home projects as, homeschool students. And then corporates and nonprofits, because popcorn is such a fun food to have, like at the theaters, and a lot of popcorn gets spilled out onto the floor, or it's just left, and it's tedious. Folks don't really like to clean it. So it can also, the cooked popcorn can be compost, even if it has flavor on it, butter, salt, whatever. It can go right into a compost bin at home or in a garden. So it can, that serves a big, it helps, create, what am I trying to think of? Just partnership throughout the community, no matter how small or big the community is. So yeah, and so all of this is just to try to create food access and teaching something fun.
Good. All levels of interaction with popcorn. Yes.
Yes. Everything popcorn.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next up, John Morrison.
Unless something has changed earlier, John put in the chat that he's in a place where he's unable to speak.
Okay, no problem.
And I can read from their website. So they give a glass a second chance with their reuse first recycling service. They call people to join the reuse revolution, say goodbye to single-use packaging, and hello to a more sustainable future. Did you know that 70% of glass packaging ends up in the landfill? That's 7.4 million tons annually. And so they suggest an infrastructure where they offer people to first shop with purpose and recycle with ease. And it looks like it's related to glass bulk store containers. Then they would clean the containers, and third step would be closing the loop of glass recycling and refilling the containers.
Okay, more glass, yes. Next up, how about Miranda?
Hello.
Hello.
So my name is Miranda Hunter, and I'm the CEO of Terra Sticker. So basically this product is coming as a zero waste item that is used as a sticker for fruit. So this biodegradable sticker is creating sustainability, but also innovation in a way that I feel will create community and also educate people about the standards that there are currently today when it comes to sustainability. It is not incentivized for biodegradable products. So I'm kind of coming in with well, I have this product here. If you are a conscious-minded entrepreneur or business, what have you, I have this product here and I'm ready to work with you. I'm still in the process of creating this said product, and we are to launch December 2023.
Woo, okay, thank you. Glad to know about that effort. Next up, Risa.
Hi, so my name is Risa. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm one of the co-founders for a startup. I don't think my other co-founder is here, but her name is Brenda, and we're Ryumo. And essentially we're reclaiming well, I should probably start way back. So we currently live in Washington. For a little bit of context, both of us are students at the University of Washington. Seattle and Washington overall has a really big fishing culture and also just a really big gardening culture as well. But interestingly enough, there's just a lot of plastics that go into that industry or both industries. So both of us being very environmentally people as well, uh, we're planning on using fishing nets, the ones that cast out really wide to catch fish in bulk, as well as tarps and any plastic materials used in gardening kits to basically take those and reform them into something that we call green stormwater infrastructure kits, which are essentially think of using those fish nettings to contain layers of moss, soil, and sediments to create a very simple filtration system that are fairly compact and are meant to be placed near the side of the road. So that divot in between like the incline of the sidewalk and in between that 12-inch space between the road and the sidewalk is where we will be placing the kits. Of course, like the placement of the kits and the size of the kits is customizable depending on how much space we're able to work with. But our intended audience right now is more with local government who are already investing a massive amount into stormwater pollution prevention. I currently work for Seattle Public Utilities, so I already know how much is being invested, which is usually around like 5 million every year just in pollution prevention. So we essentially want to reclaim all these like plastic items that or plastic materials that are being used for fishing, for gardening, and essentially repurposing those materials into these moss-based filtration kits to prevent pollution from flowing into storm drains from that heavy rain that tends to happen during spring and winter seasons, especially around the city of Seattle. So our product is intended to be used around like urban areas and cityscapes. Yeah, thank you so much. If you have any questions, hopefully that was a little thorough.
That was interesting. I don't know if you're watching the news about the findings about the chemical that's in rubber tires that's washing off roads.
6-ppd.
Yeah, washing into Lake Washington and killing the salmon, right? And I keep thinking,
Yes.
why don't they filter the stuff coming off of the bridge?
That is an excellent question. Please consult the REMA website. But no, for 6-ppd quinone is a very small particulate. We were talking to one of the researchers, Stephanie Blair, who is doing research on 6-ppd quinone and specifically how like it could be filtered through rain gardens and other forms of green stormwater infrastructure. But so far, it seems like ultimately, of course, the solution always is just preventative measures, right? Using different types of tires, but that's not always available to everyone, to just use different materials to like try different strategies. It's not always affordable. So that's why we're kind of offering like the Remo kit as like a more like kind of that last barrier to preventing stormwater pollution and preventing all those like particulates and contaminants from entering the storm drain and killing those delicious salmon.
Sounds interesting. Okay. And Kayla, you want to talk briefly about your project?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I am the chief brand strategist of a junk removal and donation pickup company called Do Good. And we're based in Ballard. Well, we were founded in Ballard. That's why we have a little U with an umlaut to kind of give a nod to our Nordic roots. And so we're a family-run business. It's me and my brothers and my dad. And what we do is we collect, people pay us to collect junk or donatable items. It doesn't really matter if they know if they're junk or donation. We will give them items to look out for that our partners are looking for. And we help to find everything a second home as much as we can in an industry that's huge industry. I think it's in $500 billion globally, junk removal in and of itself. And so we kind of bring the donation aspect into it. And what we do is we sort through every single thing that we pick up. And we are working on building our partnerships to find those things the right second homes, ultimately planning on opening up a retail location to kind of compete with Goodwill that's way more accessible in pricing and focused on, again, keeping things in circulation. So we just launched a year ago and have been doing really well. We're trying to get a second truck, but we have one truck and essentially doing it all ourselves. And yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, but we collect everything you could possibly imagine. So anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. So I really appreciate being able to hear across all these different kinds of projects. Fascinating. This is a fascinating group of thinkers together, and I'm really excited to hear about all your work. So before I dive into my stuff, I was going to ask Heather, who I notice is in the room, whether she wanted to say anything. I don't know if
well, that is very nice of you. I was just listening, so I wasn't planning to say anything, but it is exciting that people are already pretty well able to tell their story. So I think it's going to be great to sort of see what you say for people to enhance, because I did feel like hearing from everybody, I got a pretty good idea of what they're doing.
Right.
So maybe less of the sort of the full art in one sentence, which perhaps is needed when you're doing a pitch to an investor.
Exactly. Okay, so let's see. Someone just joined. Hampter Santi. Are you able to tell us about your project? Or not? Not hearing anything. Okay. Maybe later then. So I'm now sharing my screen, so let me know if you can see it. Yes?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So I come from a marketing perspective, which doesn't mean, in my mind, does not mean sell more people more junk. It means looking at a whole sort of system and thinking about the exchanges that take place and how to manage those exchanges. And there's all kinds of exchanges in addition to, you know, getting stuff for money, right? That sort of exchange. I've spent much of my professional life looking at marketing. I think of it as marketing on the margins, right? So nonprofit marketing and social marketing and sustainable marketing and you know, green marketing back when that was a thing in the 1990s, and all the different ways that we can think about it. So much of marketing is a tool that can be applied to whatever you're interested in. So, so that's my approach. So we're going to talk specifically about these marketing concepts tonight. So we've heard about people's ideas and sort of what comes next in the process. I'm thinking that sort of the strategic planning process, right, is research. And I know you've had people talk to you about research and the kind of research that's available. There's, yeah, a variety. Doing both, doing exploratory research, it should be part of your ongoing activities, right? Talking to as many people as possible, getting your idea out there to as many people as possible. Just see what sorts of ideas they have. So you're kind of in constant exploratory research mode, just asking open-ended questions. What do you think about this? What sorts of reactions? What sorts of possible barriers? What kinds of needs do people have that maybe you haven't even thought about? But so it could be done through, I think, a lot of really valuable research, even for you know, startups, for people with cool ideas. It's really valuable just to do that sort of informal, ongoing, talk to people kind of conversations all the time. And then there's a lot of online research that will help you as well. And what your research will lead you probably to see or to understand, for most of you, you'll find a variety of different kinds of potential customers or people who, you know, people who may be interested in what you have, what you've been thinking about. Okay, and that's where these concepts come into play. So we're going to first talk about segmentation, which is in the face of everybody out there. How do you find, instead of this huge heterogeneous, you know, quote unquote, the marketplace, how do you find those smaller groups of people who share needs or share interests or share some other characteristics that make them more similar to each other, and maybe that will mesh with your ability to tailor offerings that specifically meet the needs of that smaller potential target market, rather than kind of the one-size-fits-all approach for everybody out there. Once you've identified different segments, different possible target audiences, or potential audiences out there. Targeting is kind of the strategic management decisions about who are you going to go after? Who are you going to prioritize? Who will you focus on first? And then positioning is, how do you want those target audiences to think about you, to think about your organization, to think about your offer, compared to anything or everything else out there in the marketplace, anything else that might address the need that you're addressing with them. And so we'll talk in a little bit more detail about each of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. And then we'll talk about communication. So once you have a really good sense of who you're talking to and how you want them to think about you, then we're in the position to be able to talk about, I mean, how are we going to approach the customer, right? The potential customer. And promotion is kind of an older term. Now we talk about integrated marketing communications, but essentially all the communications that we engage in take place under that heading. Okay, so segmentation, as I said, you know, it takes this heterogeneous big group of massive, you know, who might be interested, and groups people together based on some characteristic or set of characteristics. And we'll talk about what are those characteristics. You know, strategically, that's up to you to figure out what characteristics are meaningful for your offer. This diagram indicates that from the whole mass of you know, the mass market, splitting people into groups lead you to have groups that are more similar on some dimension. And also the groups are not all the same size. A lot of these diagrams that show segmentation show segments are all the same size, and that's clearly not the case. And it may be, you know, through the targeting process, after you've segmented the market, you have to figure out like which segment are we going to go after first. It may be that larger isn't necessarily better, right? So it could be that there might be a small segment that you might be uniquely positioned to address that maybe has less competition or no competition right now. It might be a place to start. A lot of small companies start with small target market segments and get their footing, get the business underway, get some of the bumps in the system worked out, and then figure out, you know, how do you want to expand to different target markets. So thinking about segments as being not all the same size is a good reminder. Okay. So segments, people can be, target customers can be grouped together. This chart only pretty much focuses on characteristics that describe consumer markets. There are also lists of characteristics of business markets, which a lot of you are dealing with too. There's a huge number of different ways of grouping people together. And it could be based on location, some level of geographic variables. It could be based on demographics. So at the consumer level, again, demographics are kind of those Census Bureau kinds of descriptions of people. How old are they? Usually where do they live is demographic as well. Here it's split out separately as geographic. What language do they speak? What occupation are they working in? How much money do they make? What sort of education level do they have? Those are sorts of demographics. Who all are you living with in your household? There's also psychographics, which to the extent that demographics describe kind of provide a statistical kind of description of consumers, psychographics describe the interior landscape of consumers. How do they think? What sort of lifestyle? What are they interested in? What sorts of activities do they engage in? What sorts of attitudes do they hold? What kinds of values are best describe them, and the choices that they make. And then there's behavioral variables, which is kind of the category that includes everything else. For consumer segments, behavioral characteristics can include benefits sought or needs, right? Like, what is the consumer seeking? That's going to be a defining characteristic for many of you. Figuring out, so, you know, who are possible target markets out there? Well, who's seeking the benefits that we are uniquely positioned to provide? And if we can identify them, that would be a behavioral sort of segmentation approach. Purchase or usage or occasion have to do with, you know, when does somebody buy a service or product? Are they heavy users of it? Maybe if you can identify, you know, heavy users of or heavy generators of certain waste streams, you may want to approach them first. They might be an attractive market segment if you need to go to them to try and get your inputs. So there's so many ways to think about how to group people together. There's usually not one magic way for any one organization. Usually several variables may be relevant, and what organizations often do is to use a combination, right, of 2 or 3 or 4 variables to describe their target audience. Maybe their highest priority target audience, or maybe they prioritize come up with 2, 3, 4, 5 different potential target markets, target segments out there. I provided a couple different diagrams that are often used to sort of describe different ways of describing consumer markets, different segmentation variables. And I wanted to say these show all of the different categories of variables, equal size, arcs in the circles. It's like, no, that's really not necessary, and really not helpful. So be wary when you read descriptions of a specific target market. Don't make assumptions about the size of that market based on maybe descriptive variables or descriptive statistics. You want to be watchful about that. As I said, the segmentation diagrams usually show all the segments the same size, and that's so not realistic. Understanding key target markets. This diagram, I included it because it was from a communication agency, right? So they're selling their consultation services to companies out there, but they provided some interesting perspectives, which is identifying the target market with a common segment or a common variable. Basically, you want to understand, for any target market that you identify, what are they looking for? What needs do they have? And what can you satisfy for them? Here at the very top, it says 20% of customers account for 80% of turnover. Well, not exactly, but the 20-80 rule or the 80-20 rule is one that we often hear about, right? That says, a large amount of our business can be attributed to a relatively small number of customers, or, sort of the pointing out the heavy user category. And so that's one of those I'll go back here. One of those behavioral variables is user status. Are they brand new? Are they loyal users? Are they heavy users? Are they light users? So understanding that level of potential customer behavior will be helpful. At the very bottom left, it says, and this was based on data from, I don't know when, they didn't cite the date. As much as 85% of new product launches failed because of poor market segmentation. Oh, yikes. It sounds like it's important. And why I think we can understand if you end up not identifying target segments, just kind of putting it out there. And this is what a lot of passionate, innovative startups, folks have a great idea. They're really excited about it. They think this is awesome. And it's like, everybody else should love it too, should be as intrigued, right? Not the case. So it's really worthwhile thinking about, not a sort of mass market approach, but understanding really as carefully as you can, who all might have a need that you are well positioned to address. And that's, you brainstorm. This is why it's great to be working with a group. Keep brainstorming, keep thinking of new potential users, and then you do some interviews, and then you gather some data, and you see whether they really are interested or could be interested in what you're able to provide right now, or what you could provide in the future. So thinking carefully about how you want to target your efforts, how you want to focus your efforts, is a really good step to take in the beginning. It says toward the end here, research the size of your target market. As I said, it's worth knowing how many are out there, how many customers or how many suppliers or whoever it is you're having to communicate with, right? But even if that number is small, doesn't mean they're necessarily a bad potential target market. They might be a great place to start with. Okay. Normally when we're thinking about market segmentation, identifying these different groups, these different segments, we are going to find a whole bunch of different possibilities. And so how do you evaluate the segments? These are some requirements or wish list, essentially, to keep in mind. Is the segment measurable? Like, can you actually find out how many are out there? That would be a plus if you could. And depending on who your customers are or who your potential, for a lot of you, you're looking at suppliers, right? You're going to be marketing to suppliers to send you their stuff. Knowing how many of them there are will be helpful. Are they accessible? Can we reach them? Do we have personal connections? Are there industry associations that we can tap into? Are there websites, interest groups, publications that provide a way to get to them? Is the second question. Is the target market substantial? Here, and this you may say, but wait, you said they didn't have to be big in order to be an attractive target market. But the question is the target market big enough and profitable enough for your organization to be able to serve? Part of that question has to do with profitable enough, right? Are they willing to pay what you think it's going to cost for you to provide the benefits that they're seeking? How do you figure that out? Talk to people to get a sense of, what's the alternative that they're pursuing now? What does that cost them? Or how much would it be worth to them for you to provide this service or provide this set of products for them? So they don't necessarily have to be a large target market, but profitable enough. Are they differentiable? This one I usually put a star next to it. In fact, I did, because differentiable is like the basis for segmenting markets. If you identify two different segments, but they behave exactly the same way with respect to behaviors that are important to your organization, you don't need to separate them into two, combine them into one. So it's worth knowing whether the segments that we've identified are worth treating separately, two separate segments, maybe with tailored outreach to each, maybe with tailored offerings to each. If we think that they're going to have different needs, that they need a separate offering in order to respond positively. And then finally, actionable has more to do with the organization. Effective programs can be developed to reach out to different segments, to provide the tailoring of your offer, whatever that looks like, for different segments. If you're starting out, often you're not in a position, and this will go into targeting, like, so who are you going to go after? Probably not more than one segment, you may not have the resources to be able to address multiple segments at the same time, and that's fine. So leading from segmentation to targeting, once you've identified potential segments out there, who do you focus on? Who do you go for? So there's different approaches that you can take. Do you treat the whole market just as a mass market, undifferentiated, like one size fits all kind of approach? Probably not. That's ignoring segments, and you're going to end up reaching a whole bunch of people who may not care about what it is that you can do. Differentiated is segmented marketing. So of everybody out there, you identify different groups who are more attractive, who are more in line with what they're looking for, what you can provide. And so bigger companies can address several segments, maybe all at one time. The concentrated or niche approach is to identify one or maybe a small number of segments to focus on first. And then what a lot of companies do is start with a concentrated approach. And then as they get bigger and they have more resources, then they can move into more of a differentiated approach, deal with more segments. Micro marketing is very much a kind of almost one-on-one tailored approach. And I'm not sure I heard any of those kinds of businesses described in your 1 minute sort of intros. Here's another way of describing the same thing. As I said, what most companies do, especially starting out, is to use a concentrated approach. They know that there are several segments out there, but they're going to concentrate all their efforts on addressing one of the segments now. And then as they gain success and they gain additional resources, then they may move into more of a differentiated approach to have maybe, one program for one segment, one kind of segment, and a different program for a different kind of segment. Okay, so if either of those diagrams helps you, that's great. helps you describe to somebody, right, what your strategy is going to be. Once you've identified different segments and you've targeted, you've figured out who you want to address first, who you want to focus on first. The next step in the process is to develop a clear positioning strategy. This is crucially important. And it doesn't mean where to position it in the store, or where to put it on a website, or it doesn't mean any sort of physical position at all. It's really focused on the place the product occupies in consumers' minds or customers' minds relative to competing products. How do you want your target customers to think about your offer? That's positioning strategy. This is not an ad slogan. It's nothing that's externally focused. Doesn't go to customers. You don't publish your positioning strategy, but for the folks in the organization, it's really helpful to keep everybody on the same page in terms of all understanding who are we as an organization, what are we focusing on, who are we serving, how are we distinguishing ourselves from all the other competitors out there in the minds of our target segment. So differential advantage is at the heart of a positioning strategy or a positioning. I'll end up suggesting that you write a positioning statement, which can be described like in one long or a couple sentences. Differential advantage. So you think about who are the competitors. In most cases, there is a competitor. There's somebody out there that's addressing the needs of your target customers. Those customers, they have some need, and they're working now on fulfilling that need somehow. And maybe you're coming in with a different technology or a different approach or a different way of disposal or a different something. But in most cases, you're not coming to somebody who has never thought of that need at all. A lot of these people, so what I'm going to encourage you to do is think really broadly about who's your competition. And in many cases, it's what are people doing now? How are they handling that now? What are they doing with their plastic now? What are they doing with their solar panels now? What are they doing with with their extra bottles now? That's your competition. They may look very different from what you're proposing, but I would say, yes, that's right. They're still competing. Positioning approaches can be based on lots of different kinds of qualities of a company. It could be based on, within a category, we're the best. It could be quality based. It could be based on focusing on, we do better at serving this kind of consumer than anybody else. It could be very much competitor based, like this is the competition, but we're better, and explain why. It could be based on prestige or image. Think about all the products that we're exposed to on a daily basis, right? And you can identify lots of these different strategies. Could be based on a particular attribute, focus people on one ability that your company has, one thing that you can provide that maybe no one else can. Some organizations try to build a long-lasting competitive advantage based on price. If you do that based on lowest price, that's a really tough position to maintain over the long run. If all you claim is, we're lower price than anybody else, all somebody has to do is come in and underprice you for a short time or a little bit for them to claim that they're the lowest price, and then your advantage is gone. So for a long run advantage, that's not the way most organizations go. For most of what we heard described in terms of these different ideas, right? Most of you seem to be focusing on benefit or need, that you're better at addressing, at providing a specific benefit or set of benefits, or addressing a specific need than anyone else. Maybe you're able to address a need in the least environmentally impactful way, or the most socially just way, or we provide these benefits, including social equity, that none of our competition is doing. So most of you seem to be focusing on benefit as a way of setting yourself apart. The kinds of questions you can ask yourself about, you can be thinking about your own organization, your own startup, but also kind of surveying the landscape out there. You want to see, so who else is, who are we up against? Who else is serving needs now? And you can think about these kinds of questions. Who are the companies? Who are the customers? What do the customers want or need? Understanding that customer need is really key. Who are the competition? How are they meeting those needs? How are they operating? So to determine a company's current market position for a company that's already in a market, or in the case of a startup, a new one, a proposed entrant into the market, you can think about those categories. I've got some almost recipes for how to think about devising a positioning strategy that I'll share with you next. Before I did that, I wanted to sort of remind us, okay, positioning strategy, what are we talking about again? What position do we want to occupy in the minds of our target market? That's the key. That's the focus. That's what a positioning strategy helps us to do. If we have more than one target market that we're going to be addressing at the same time, we would devise a separate positioning strategy for each one. So for the target market that you have in mind, you want to figure out how do you want them to think about you compared to the competitors that are there. And as I said, the positioning statement that you can use to describe this is not a tagline. It's not a slogan. It's not used externally, but it's really helpful to share that internally and with folks who are helping you think through strategy to make sure that you all understand as clearly as possible. And this is kind of review from what I just said as well. In coming up with this positioning statement, what do we think about? We want to be really clear on who the target customers are. We want to be really clear on what the competitive frame is. Who are we competing with? And some may be direct competitors, or some may be just, kind of substitutes that exist now that may take a very different form than what we're going to provide. And so that goes back to understanding what customer needs are being addressed here, even though they may take very different shapes or forms. And then also think about what's our point of difference? How do we want people to think about us being different than any of the other folks who are out there trying to serve the same market. Okay, so I've got different templates, I think like 5 sort of, I don't know, did you ever look at those ad libs games sort of that kids play with, like fill in the blank? It's kind of that approach to writing or thinking about a positioning statement. So here's the first one. To our target segment who needs whatever they need. Our offer, whatever it is, you may have a brand name, you may have a product name there, is what? What are we providing? And how is it different? So this is a pretty simple approach. It looks simple, right? Once you sit down and work on writing it, some of the complexity becomes more clear, and may take some time to be able to clearly describe our target segment or our point of difference, our point of advantage. So that's the first potential template. Another, I'll get on the right screen here, another fill in the blank approach is this one. This one includes, what are we offering? Who's the target audience? What need do they have? What problem are we helping them solve? And then the secret sauce is like, what sets us apart? What are we able to do? Or how are we able to do it that's different from others out there? So in talking about startups, often there's discussion about, so what's the secret sauce? What sets this company apart? Here's a third option. This includes, I kind of like this one because it includes specifically who you see as your competition. So the competitive frame is specifically called out. And it may be that there are discussions that are going to happen within your startup team about how broadly are we competing? Who all do we think are our competitors? If it's, if we're talking about an educational program, are there other websites? Are there educational programs through schools? Are there, sort of programs that you can pay for? Are there health-based programs, healthcare-based programs that are out there that are also competing with what it is we're thinking about putting out there? So I encourage you to think about using this one because of it forces you to think about who is trying to address the same need already, right? Here's another approach. And again, so I provided a whole bunch of different ones because I thought it's helpful to have a bunch to look at, and then you can pick one or pick two to use for your own application. This one has suggestions for if you want to compare yourself to a competitor, like how are we different, better than the competition? Or the second, the one at the bottom here is if you want to focus on your customers, it doesn't really necessarily focus on competitors. And then number 5, this one is actually from Jeffrey Moore, who wrote the book Crossing the Chasm, which is a widely referenced book about companies going from small to big. And this is the formula that he recommends. Obviously, it's like, this is not an ad. It's not advertising. This isn't communication with outside folks, right? This is for internal use. But this can be helpful because it forces you to get specific, right? About the opportunity that you're addressing, about how you're different from your major competition, the primary or the set of competitors that you've identified, but also what benefits you provide, what benefits you're trying to provide, and what features, what design elements of your offer provide those or support those benefits. So 5 different, actually 6, because number 4 had 2, right? So 5 or 6 different approaches. None of them are wrong. But at least one of them you should use. You should, and I would say as soon as you can, try working your way through it. Maybe you're very early in your process, or maybe you have a business that's already going. Use one, apply it, work your way through, see if you want to make changes. And you're not set in stone. This may change over time as you better grow to understand your target market, or better grow to understand what technology you're actually able to provide, or as your business develops. I provided a couple examples here of products and positioning statements for them. You can see this one for Mountain Dew. You can see who the target market is: young, active, soft drink consumers. What need do they have? Well, they're tired because they don't get much sleep. That's kind of a lifestyle characteristic as well. What does this product do? It's the soft drink. So they're kind of defining the product category right there, right? It's not just a beverage. It's not just, it could be broader. They could say something broader about, some sort of like additive, or, include medications, but they didn't. So we're a soft drink. That's where they see themselves competing. That gives you more energy than any other brand. And how did they do that? Because of the level of caffeine. And then the website down below shows ways that you can look at the website and see how the positioning strategy is made concrete in their communications, right? So the positioning strategy is the basis for all the other marketing activities that you engage in, including communication. Here's another example, Evernote. Maybe you've used it, maybe you know about it. But again, notice the element, read through the positioning strategy statement and notice the elements that are included. And notice the implied or explicit, it can be either way, benefits for that company has. What can it do that's different from what's already out there? They talk about integrating across all these different platforms, right? They don't talk about the competition very clearly, although they are digital content management application. So I guess you could think about who else is a digital app that could help you manage documents and all these things. I think they could have been clearer on the competition. Here's another example, and it's a tasty low-fat cookie is the product that's being sold. What's the benefit? Great tasting, but guilt-free pleasure. And then how do they do it? At the bottom, it says reasons to believe. What is it? What kind of evidence can you provide that would lead your target market to believe that you could actually provide that benefit that you're promising? And there it's, maybe in this case, they've got some data, they did some studies. It may be your technology, it may be your connections, it may be your sort of network, it may be your expertise. Here's one more. Again, kind of a Mad Libs approach, filling in the blank. So the positioning part of segmentation, targeting, positioning, figuring out who your target market is, who the different potential segments are, who are we going to go after first, who will we focus on first, and how do we want them to think about us? Crucially important. Once the positioning statement is described in a strategic statement this way, then you're ready to continue designing the product and service offering. You're ready to, sort of figure out a pricing strategy that makes sense given your positioning statement, your positioning strategy. How do we want to compete? You can figure out distribution, how to distribute, how to physically provide the service and product in a way that makes sense given our overall strategy, our positioning strategy. And you can proceed with developing communications, again, that are consistent with the positioning strategy. So basically, having a positioning statement is hugely valuable because it helps to then provide guidance for all the specific tactical decisions that you're going to have to make. You go back to that positioning statement and say, well, is this what we intended, or are we straying from it? Okay. So here's all that I provided the slides for Xenia, so you can see all the details, all these different statements, all the small writing on the slides later on. So you can look at this example of, starting with segmentation and then targeting, and then how does that translate into their positioning strategy? It's just an example. Okay, then we're ready to start talking about, as I said, how are we going to approach the customer or the consumer, and specifically, how might we communicate? Because after all, this was billed as telling your story, right? So far, I've spent a lot of time on who are you talking to with your story, and I'm going to continue that a little bit, because one of the things that always comes up especially in entrepreneurship, I see so many references to Simon Sinek, right? And Start With Why. And he's got a book, he's got TED Talk, he's got his own websites, all about the bullseye diagram that we see on the lower left here, that he says, start with why. Why are you doing what you do? And he claims that few people or organizations know why they do what they do. They can describe what are they doing, the outermost ring. And they can describe how, what are the processes or the sort of the technologies or the approaches that they use that enable them to do the what, to do what they do. But he says, why is at the very heart of it. And he suggests that we start there when we're talking to somebody else about our organization. This is why we do it. So, he says maybe it's the purpose, your cause, your belief, your deeply held convictions, the passion that you have. And I could hear the passion in a lot of you, right? I mean, that's why you're interested in doing it, because you feel passionate about it. His suggestion, his recommendation is that communication should start with that. I said, well, okay, that's interesting. A lot of people find this an appealing approach. Why would that be? So as somebody with a cool idea, why is it that you want to talk to anybody out there about your idea? Because you've got passion, you've got conviction, you are interested. People like talking about themselves and what they're interested in, right? And you are very interested in your realm of your project. And so it's easy. It's relatively easy to talk about the why. Why are you doing this? Oh, because I care so much. And, and it becomes about you. And I would say that's a potential danger. So there's another school of thought out there that says starting with why is not necessarily where you want to start. What's the problem? We have a term for it. We call it marketing myopia. And that is when you are the marketer, which you all are. You've got these ideas. You're wanting to put them out into the marketplace, exchange them for goods and money and other stuff out there. So you're the marketer. And the danger of having a very internally focused approach, all about you, is that you know about you, and you're interested in you, and you can talk about you a lot, and you can lose sense of or lose touch with your audience, who it is you're talking to. Their interest, why are they engaging with you? Why will they be interested in you? Maybe partly because of your passion, but they're not going to sign on just because, well, okay, as customers, so a little bit separate from investors, perhaps, but as customers or investors who want to make money with you, they're interested in why you think you can do what you claim you can do, but they have a need. I mean, customers are open to your ideas because they have a need. They have a problem. They have a pain point. They have something that hasn't been addressed appropriately yet, and they're looking for a solution. And if you have something that could be a solution for them, awesome. So for them, it's less about your why than it is about how you can help them. So we don't want to lose sight of the target consumer. And my just a little discomfort with Simon Sinek and his start with why is that you can lose sight of your audience. It's all about your why instead of being more customer oriented. Okay, so a couple other consultants who have sort of management authors, highly respected management gurus, right? Who have talked about an alternative that's more customer oriented. One of them is Peter Drucker. He now the great granddaddy of cutting edge management thought. So he was publishing back in the 50s and 60s when there was early stuff going on. But he proclaimed the purpose of a business is to create and keep the customer. So the customer is at the focus, at the heart of what the business needs to be about. And frankly, without creating and keeping a customer, satisfying a customer, your business won't survive. You've got to be able to satisfy that customer. So I think it really does imply deep, deep customer understanding and focus. So I wrote this so that you can read it later. about this caring for a customer and really understanding your who instead of your why. You want to focus on the who. Another widely respected business and management author and presenter is Jim Collins. He wrote a pivotal book called Good to Great, all about effective management style. And he devised what he calls this hedgehog concept, which maybe that'll help you remember it. I don't know. It's a funny name, I think, because it doesn't look like a hedgehog. I thought it was going to be shaped like a hedgehog or something like that. But he said, the key to successful businesses, figuring out what are you passionate about? So essentially, what is your why? What do you care about? And then what are you good at? What can you do? What abilities, what skills, what technical capabilities, what are you really good at? And then what many say the whole focus on why overlooks is the third part of this, which is what drives your economic model or engine for your business. It's not just about your passion or just about what you're really good at, but it's who are you talking to? Who's going to be buying it? Who needs your service? Who needs your products? And so really understanding the target of your communications is key. And that's why I spent all this time talking about segmentation and targeting and positioning, because really understanding who it is you're talking to or who the different kinds of target markets are is key. Okay, so successful storytelling, I maintain, starts with that who. Really understand target customers, target stakeholders. And then there are some insights to be gained from two sources. So one is the value proposition canvas. This is part of the business model canvas. I think somebody talked to you about this. Is that right, Xenia? Nod, yeah.
Yeah, at the lean manufacturing class.
Okay. So the business model canvas, I've got a couple of links here. One is to a video that you can watch if you want more input about it. So there's a part of the whole business model canvas that focuses on the value proposition. So it looks at, on the left side here is the company. They have represented by this little gift box, right? Like, what are we providing? And on the right side, represented by the customer. And the idea is you really need to understand the customer and the customer's view of their world in order to be able to make the best offering that will match what the customer is dealing with. And so you do some research to gain insights into the customer. What are they looking to gain? What pains do they have to deal with? What are the problems they're dealing with now? And what do they have to get done? What sorts of jobs do they have to get done? And then how can those map into, we could devise, we could design our services and products so that when you're in this mode, education mode, this will help you. And we can, specifically, are there things that we can do that will address and reduce or eliminate some of the pain points that they're experiencing? How can we enlarge, expand, or be able to have ways for the customer to gain what it is they're hoping to gain? A couple examples here. I know it's really busy. Oftentimes when companies do this, they do it with sticky notes and different colors or color-coded markers, which is helpful actually. But this was a value proposition canvas or worksheet for a fast, easy, and social way to transfer funds to friends. So you can think something like, maybe Venmo. What did that when they were brainstorming that business and that business model, what did it look like? So they talked to lots of people and said, well, what do you need to get done? That's the customer job part. And what's tough? What problems are you dealing with? What are those pain points? And then also, what are you hoping to gain? What will be a good benefit for you? Oftentimes, you can see sometimes the difference between the pain is the negative side of it and the positives, like eliminating that would be a positive, a gain for them. And then how can you, so here, what sorts of pain relievers can be designed into our product to address some of these problems that customers are talking about or are realizing? And how can we expand on or provide even more gains based on what they're, again, based on the customer insights. So doing research is a continuing to talk to people is an important part of the process. Here's a second example. This was for a portable dialysis unit, very different kind of product than the first one. But here again, what is understanding from the customer side first? What do they need to get done? What's causing them problems now? And what would they like? What benefits would, additional benefits would be great, would be the gains. And then how can in this case, a medical device be designed in order to address, to fit all those things right into their offer. Okay, the second, so the value proposition canvas idea, I think can be a useful way to think about how to communicate about what you're doing for the customer, whatever customer group you're talking about. Another area of insight or a source of insight is from human-centered design process. This has been a big topic of conversation over the past decade and more about how to think about design, designing services, designing products, designing processes, designing workplaces. It's been applied in lots and lots of different settings. And the reason I include it is because it really starts with trying to understand the world from your customer's perspective. That's empathy. They call it empathy. We call it empathy in other parts of our lives too. But in order to be successful with your design, you go where that customer is. You look at the world through their lenses and understand kind of along the lines too of that value proposition canvas, like what are their pain points? What are their hopes that aren't being addressed, or their wishes that aren't being addressed, or their needs that aren't being addressed, or what's causing them problems now? And then continuing to sort of brainstorm, prototype possible solutions, which could be a business model or could be a positioning strategy, and then test that out. How does that sound to people in your target group? And then kind of repeat, iterate. This human-centered design approach, here's another really pretty diagram describing starting with research, which you all have done and continue to do. Empathize, be the user. To the extent that you can be the user, that's awesome. Be your customer or get as close to them as possible. And then think about designing your solution to the user's needs or the customer problems, testing it out, figuring out what metrics to use. Be brave here. It's really easy to say, oh, well, sounds like a great idea. No, let's come up with some real metrics to make sure that it's going to pencil out. It'll be successful enough with that target segment in order for you to stay in business. Because if you don't stay in business, you can't do the good in the world that you want to do. So it needs to pencil out. So figure out the metrics that are crucial and then iterate. Keep revising. Iteration is a huge part of, like pivoting quickly, a huge part of business these days. And so don't be afraid. You're not, with any of these stages that we've talked about so far, you're not setting anything in stone. And you're welcome to go back and rethink it, revisit it. Think about it from the perspective of a different customer group that we hadn't thought of in the beginning, but they may be a good group. Let's work it through that way, right? Just keep iterating, keep being willing to shift, modify the metrics as well as the designs as you gain more information, as you gain more insights into the potential target customers that you're looking to serve out there. I think that's it. So I'll stop sharing. There we go. So in terms of telling your story, who are you talking to? Just like, as a parent, you wouldn't tell the same story to a 1-year-old as you would tell to your 10-year-old. as a business person, you're not going to tell the same story to one, to one target group as you would to a different target group. So you really want to understand your audience and your target, and then you can design your effective communications from there. All right, so I'm done talking. Questions or comments or what now?
We have John messaged in the chat. I couldn't agree with the last part. Keep iterating. We've tested 5 different business models over the last 3 months to finally arrive at our current product and service. Lots of conversations with our customers. Couldn't agree more. He corrected himself.
That's awesome. And I didn't plant you in the audience, right? I mean, that's exactly the kind of reaction that I would hope for. You know, a lot of folks, a lot of entrepreneurs and innovators and, you know, idea folks, which is what you all are right now. You're embarking, right? A lot of people are kind of afraid to talk about their idea with other people. It's like, oh man, got to get over that. Got to get over that. Because talking with different folks is how you will gain those sorts of insights like John is talking about. So it would be fun to hear what kinds of changes, John, you made. And I can only agree. And I would say, keep at it. Boy, you're being very brave too, right? Trying out different business model and then a different business model and then a different one until you find one that's working. Awesome.
Oh, I can talk now.
Oh, good.
Actually, in January, we started out launching a zero waste grocery delivery service. We had 2 buildings that we were testing our product with. I won't get into the why we tested other things and pivoted, but ultimately our big vision of the company is to eliminate single-use packaging from all consumer packaged goods. So we're just trying to figure out what is the best entry point to start to build like the flywheel to get the type of network effects we need to like have a big shift. Because our recycling systems aren't working at all. So, you know, it's terribly difficult, but yeah, that's why we picked glass actually, because it's already a material that can be reused, and there's nothing that we're asking our food partners. So we're partnering with food and beverage brands, and we're creating a new municipal utility scale glass service. So residents will like pay us $8 to $10 a month, and we pick up and we run it through our system, inspect, sanitize, and we deliver that packaging back to food brands for reuse.
Wow, where is this?
In Seattle. So our residential service is starting in June. And we just, you know, like I said, after 3 months of testing a whole bunch of things, this is kind of where we arrived. And just talking to customers and talking to food brands and listening to everyone. Like we knew what we wanted to solve. It's just how do we solve it? How do we position our product? What's our strategy? And this is where we arrived. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like talk to everyone, talk to us. Like I mean, I still even want feedback from all of you. Like when I heard Xenia describe our website, I'm like, oh crap, I need to rewrite this thing. Like it clearly like didn't get the message across perfectly.
What's your website called?
I just posted in the chat.
Okay, sweet.
And after this, I was thinking I'll send out an email and create like a quick survey for all of you. And I'd love to do the same as well. Like if any of you have a website, we could all kind of critique it and say, you know, I can generate like 3 to 5 questions that will be basic for everybody. And if you don't have a website, I can recommend, this is free. I'll post it in the chat. It's super simple, just like really easy design, and you can just create whatever message you want, drop some pictures in, and just start collecting people's emails. Like tell people about your product, go to your landing page and see if they'll even give you their email about your product. That was the first step we took before we even launched in January. So that's the website, single pager. card.co. It's free, so that's great. Sorry, April, I'll let you. I've been
not at all.
Along.
No, that's awesome. Great ideas. Yes, launching or testing out with this group of people would be, I mean, this is ideal, right? Everybody's
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Really smart and interested and thinking, and that's the kind of feedback you want from people. So that's, and you may be, you know, good potential customers for each other too, but even if you're not, you've got good ideas. Yeah, I'd be interested, John, in hearing more about, so I'll contact you separately about, I've had some students doing research for a zero waste grocery store. And it sounds like there's some nice sort of synergies there. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Other comments, questions, offers?
Just possibly on John's offer to collaborate between teams. We just created a LinkedIn group, and probably we can make it a closed group where you can collaborate and communicate on one platform. So comparing to last year, this year we intentionally didn't make the platform because last year it didn't work, but probably we can try again. So we'll send the communication across with that closed LinkedIn group where you can all connect and share ideas and post.
That sounds great. This is, I mean, it's super valuable. You all have each other as really valuable sounding boards right now. So that's, wow, take advantage of it.
John, no, it doesn't. It's a brand new group. Last year, we used another platform called Mobilize. And that didn't perform well. Thank you so much, April. I just shared with teams your slides, and I hope that John will take you up on your offer to connect and share.
I'd be happy to, I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime. So don't hesitate to reach out if you had questions or you think that I might be able to be helpful some way. And yeah, I look forward to kind of following you through this process and seeing how things may shift between now and the time that you make those final presentations, right? Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. I'm stopping the recording and have